Welcome to Ideagen TV. Today we are so excited to have with us Kim Smith, IBM's Global Vice President. Kim, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ideagen Global Summit 2021. I am excited to be here today. My name is Kim Smith. I am with IBM, and I have had the honor of being a part of the Ideagen Thought Leadership Council and Advisory Board for a number of years now. I'm really excited today because the leader that I have here for our fireside chat, Dr. Evaristus Mainsah, is joining us today to talk more about some of the sustainable development around lifetime legacy for leadership. So I'd like to ask Evaristus to join us here, and we'll get started on our session today. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Kim. It's great to be here with you. This is
very good
fantastic.
to see you from opposite coasts, right? We've been on opposite coasts for a while now. I can't wait until we're in the same place again.
Me too. Me too. That is our prayer as well.
Well, if you don't mind, let's share a little bit about yourself, your role at IBM, and a little bit more about you as a leader. What drives you? What keeps you excited about working at IBM?
Thank you so much, Kim. So I'm Evaristus Mainsah, as you said. I am the General Manager of IBM's Hybrid Cloud and Edge ecosystem. So basically, I focus on bringing ecosystem partners to come onto our platform, our hybrid cloud platform, which is open, it's built on Red Hat OpenShift, and so they can use that to deliver value for their own customers. So I was born in Cameroon, in Central West Africa. I grew up in England, and moved to the US more than 15 years ago. I love theater, I love reading, I love running, and best of all, I'm the father to 3 amazing kids.
Oh, wonderful.
So what drives me, I love solving complex problems, right? And these are just the sort of problems that we are lucky to get when you work for a company like IBM. And I also have a passion for developing people, for collaborating, and for working with people.
When you think about what we do at IBM and being a company of makers and really, quite frankly, the brand being an organization that has built lifetime legacy, I'm curious of what your take on lifetime legacy is. And in your journey, what have you learned about that?
So I have had a very interesting journey, Kim, and I've been lucky beyond belief. So I was born in a beautiful Cameroonian town called Bamenda. So I grew up covered in all the love that a little boy could get, born to a mother whose schooling actually, you wouldn't believe this, had ended at middle school, but who, sheer force of personality, hard work, developed herself later to become a qualified teacher. So there was no reason really to expect then that I would be doing this interview with you, Kim. But she was hardworking, she was generous, she was always ready to offer help however she could. And she instilled in me a work ethic and a belief. So I ended up through scholarships, basically going to the best school in my town. I had a government scholarship to study in the UK. And, as you put one step in front of the other, you end up here, right? And so all along the way, I was the beneficiary of whether it was sponsorship or scholarship. I graduated with no loans at all, which is an incredible privilege. And I also benefited then from the mentorship and the sponsorship of colleagues and managers and other executives here at IBM. So I do not believe in the myth of the self-made person. Even those who claim to be self-made rely on the schools, the legal systems, roads, hospitals that others build. So I never allow myself to forget the need to do the same for others, both in my personal and in my professional life at work. So reaching back and paying it forward is really important to me.
Well, I think about the legacy that you are creating based on the experiences that you've been through. I understand there are some organizations that you've started that support similar opportunities for others who may have not all of the tools or the resources in front of them, and that the ecosystem of support you've built for yourself, you're allowing that to be available to others. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yes, well, when my mom passed away more than 20 years ago now, my brothers and I decided, and my sisters and my brother and I, that the best way to honor her was to do what she always really cared about. So I said her education when she was young ended in middle school, but she later on, through evening classes and through just reading and studying on her own, uh, graduating, finishing up as a trained teacher, teaching in schools in Cameroon. And so we thought the best way to honor her would be to set up a small trust, a small charity that would provide scholarships to children in a number of schools in the area where she was born. And so we started in back more than 20 years ago now, and we did. I remember the first year we did 15 scholarships because I thought if we picked a number that was small enough that between my brothers and I we could fund, we would know that we could keep that going. And so it went from 15 to 30 to 45, and we ended up we were doing about 300 scholarships to kids per year. Unfortunately, this all got stopped because of the area where we were offering the scholarships is under conflict right now, and so we've not done that for 3-4 years. But that's something that we have. I'm personally very committed to it. My brothers and sisters are committed to it. Others have chipped in to provide support. And again, part of this is just trying to see how if we can identify, the me of 30, 40 years ago, who really, my parents weren't even household names in our family. So they struggled to make ends meet, but they benefited. First of all, they tried all that they could, but we also benefited from the support within the community, and we want to make sure that we can make that available to others as well.
Well, that is an amazing example of lifetime legacy, and even through some of the conflict, the charity and the organization itself is on pause. You're doing other things, and you're on multiple boards, including Women in Cloud and a few others. Maybe share a little bit more about some of those other activities that you're passionate about in supporting concept of lifetime legacy.
Yeah, and thanks, Kim. So, I mean, I think lifetime legacy to me is always about looking to the future to see what you could do to make sure that everything that you got, all the benefits that you got, don't end with you, right? So if a door has been opened to you, can you hold it open for the next person? If you've gone up the ladder, can you hold the ladder up for somebody else that needs to go up? And so I think about, what I do at work, how I use my time in terms of sponsoring others, in terms of or mentoring others. There might be people in my team or people not in my team. And often there are people not in IBM, maybe the people that I had a relationship with, a mentor-mentee relationship with when they were at IBM, but they left and we're still in touch. And then, of course, the supporting work in the local community. So by my local charity that I supported for years is a small charity called Taconic Opera. They produce a few number of operas and oratoria during the year using local artists who, they're not the big stars that you know about, but that's where it all begins. And then I also, serve on the board of the King Baudouin Foundation. They basically provide access, make it easy for people to give to their worthy causes, whether you're trying to support a museum or a library in London or in the Netherlands, or you're trying to support a college or university in South Africa or in Zimbabwe or in Zambia. You can use the King Baudouin Foundation to enable you to do so. And then, of course, and they provide courses in, how do you do fundraising and how do you, keep in touch with your communities and make sure that they know about the progress that you're making in the courses that they've supported so that you can encourage them to do more. And then the one that you talked about, one of the closest to my heart, the work that we do with you, Kim, thank you, on the board of Women in Cloud, that is really focused on helping provide access to women in IT. We talk about one of the big areas where we need to do more, we must do more, which is providing greater equity for women in these highly important, highly valuable, and highly needed tech jobs. And the Women in Cloud are really focused on helping provide access to women in IT. And I'm very, very pleased to be on the advisory board with you.
I am as well. I think it's been great working with you on that initiative, and really what led us to this conversation, which takes me to the next topic. And thank you for sharing such powerful examples of what lifetime legacy is, because many of us, I think, prior to the pandemic, had these different facets of who we were that in the last year and a half, we've had to bring them all together and live in the same space. And what's really powerful about what you shared is you show a 360-degree view of what lifetime legacy looks like on a daily basis, and being involved in these programs that have immediate impact in people's lives. And then if we take it to the next level and think about, okay, what does that mean for sustainable leadership? And how do we achieve sustainable leadership within large-scale corporations like IBM? Where do you see us leading the way? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, Kim, I think one way of thinking about that is really looking through the lens of relevance, right? So to maintain relevance as a leader and as a company, you really need to think about your business in a sustainable fashion. So, for example, if you think about tech, I don't know how many gadgets you have that are 10 years old. I don't have any, right? So you always have to be thinking about, what do you need to do to stay up to date and maybe a little bit ahead of your customers to make sure that you're meeting their needs. And therefore, what do you need to help build that? And of course, skills is always a key part of that. So if you look at IBM's history, which goes back 110 years, one of the reasons we're still around is because we try to be a different company every 10 years, right? You just got to look at the industry, look at society, and how do you help make sure that you live within that environment, within the society, and work in a way that promotes and sustains sustainability. And so, for example, we know that skills is a big shortage area. And IBM is leading by example through programs like PTech, right now, a global educational initiative that we use to provide students in underserved communities with critical skills, especially IT, data, and AI skills. Also, IBM continues to advocate globally, and you know this very well, on policies that promote diversity, equity, and fairness in the countries, especially in the countries where we work. And recently, our chairman and CEO, Arvind Krishna, he sent out letters to the U.S. Congress and to the president, advocating racial justice, police reform, and also the expansion of economic opportunities for the most vulnerable within our community. Last year, we also launched our Call for Code for Racial Justice initiative. And again, the Call for Code for Racial Justice itself, just a regular call for code itself, it's an important initiative where we bring together ecosystem partners to encourage them to use open source and other IBM technologies to create solutions that solve specific problems. So we targeted COVID-19 as a big issue to solve. We targeted the environment in the past and indeed now, because we all recognize that there's a major environmental emergency going on. And so we, again, looking at bringing the ecosystem to help resolve this. So last year, we had a call for code for racial justice. The objective was to facilitate the adoption and the innovation of open source projects by developers, by other ecosystem partners and communities across the world to drive sustainable change. And there were three focus areas. One of them was police and judicial reform and accountability. And the second was, issues around diverse representation. We go straight to the skills discussion we've just had. And the third was policy and legislation reform. So IBM also recognizes that, again, if you really want to do big things, you need ecosystem partners to do this. And so in many of these, even the examples that I gave, you're going to see showing up with like-minded ecosystem partners, whether they're partners or they are clients, to help resolve this, because it's important that we do this together.
I'm so excited, as you are, about Call for Code and the fact that it is constantly evolving to be timely for the matters at hand. And the three areas that you touched on from last year's Race Matters initiatives for Call for Code, awareness, action, and then follow through were really key, not just on the policy side, on the tech side, but from a humanity perspective. How are we impacting people? And the year before, we did human trafficking at a time where that was a challenge. So I really, I agree with you. I love being involved in a lot of those initiatives that bring together what we're good at as leaders and apply it to changing the world for good, which is fantastic. And when you think of some of the challenges you're seeing in the industries that we support, especially given you lead, ecosystem development for our hybrid cloud initiatives, where have you seen industries really leading as it relates to sustainable leadership or lifetime legacy? And what are some examples of best practices that you can reflect on beyond IBM?
Yeah, I think the main challenges that you face is that a lot of companies, have what you might call an attention deficit, right? Sustainability issues tend not to show up as urgent until it's really too late, right? So if you find, for example, that you have a shortage of medical doctors, it's very likely that that problem first showed up 8 years prior. And so we always really have to be looking at pipeline, right? It's such an important thing. And because some of the sustainability issues also aren't always urgent, again, sometimes they tend to get deprioritized. But and again, you see examples of good practice. I talked about some of the things that we're doing already. But one of the things that I think we need to do more is that when we find that we share good practice out much more broadly, right? So if you, for example, you really focus on talent and there's a specific area where you're weak, that when you identify and you develop and you groom the talent, that you give them opportunity, but you also then provide them with the opportunity to be visible, right? Because it's one thing getting a pipeline to come in. What are you doing to advance, to grow, to develop, and to promote that pipeline? And what are you doing to provide visibility? Because often the pipeline is small because people aren't queuing up. And often people aren't queuing up because they just don't see any people like them with their sort of skill set, with their sort of backgrounds in those areas. And so providing greater visibility to those that are in those areas is sort of useful to helping you develop and grow that pipeline. And then basically just focus on making sure that you're not just dealing with the front end of the funnel, but you're working candidates, you're working individuals all the way through that process itself. And so I would say those are the key, that's what I would consider to be good practice. And I mean, you see a lot of companies out there that are focused on this. Many of my ecosystem partners are there. I don't know if I can name them, so I'm just going to hand up.
That's awesome. And what I love is thinking about the relevance of advancing the cause for people and letting, you cannot be what you cannot see. It resonates. And in a lot of industries who are trying to address this, what we call in IBM new collar, right? There's the new collar workforce, things like P-Tech and other programs that indicate that, the path forward is not always through a 4-year college degree. We have veteran programs, we have high school preparation programs, we have internship programs, we have return to work programs. And it's great to see other companies in our ecosystem doing the same thing, either adopting what we've learned or we adopt from them.
Yeah.
I think would you say the same observation? I'm thinking that we're seeing more collaboration and collaborative innovation in this space than ever before. Are you seeing the same kind of thing?
Absolutely. Certainly, I can name several of our ecosystem partners that we're working on who reached out to us, because obviously Call for Code, when we started Call for Code, we just went out to developers. Then we said, oh, actually, we can take this to our partners, we can take this to our ecosystem partners, and we see more and more and more of our ecosystem partners participate. But more and more of them are actually saying, can you do something with us that's very specific, focus around that broad subject, but in a specific country? Can you do something that's changed slightly? So everybody is sort of looking, because when you think about the IT shortage, for example, we all need to help develop that pipeline because we all, as an industry, benefit from it. And so you're seeing a lot more collaboration, you're seeing a lot more, top-to-top meetings where that comes up as a subject to cover, as well as sustainability itself, more broadly. Because, again, it's one of those things, it's sort of, you can think of it as a public good, but and sometimes public goods don't get any attention because nobody really takes accountability or responsibility for it. You get diffusion of responsibility. But it's important that we come together as a community, as an IT community, to resolve the issues, the challenges that they have around bias in IT, in AI, for example. How do you develop systems that are de-biased? How do you make sure that your technology isn't used in ways that we would not be proud of, our employees would not be proud of? And how do you make sure that you have diversity in the teams that build these products? Because often some of the bias that comes out in the way the products are used and deployed is down to the fact that you didn't have a broad enough constituency of individuals as part of your developer community. So in fact, you're developing products that are not as good as they could be because your pipeline did not reflect that, and the number of people that are building and developing do not reflect that. But I see absolutely a lot more collaboration as this as an industry issue, and with companies looking to learn from each other, which I think is great because more actually is better.
I would agree. When you think about leaders in your organization outside of IBM who inspire you, who are truly transformative today and making an impact in some of the areas that we've discussed, who comes to mind for you?
So I have several. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to name them. Leaders that made me spend more time with my kids because I saw the way that they were in incredibly stressful jobs, but they always took the phone when it came from home. They always took the call, and they calendared things that I did not calendar before I worked for them. And those are some of the best lessons because it helped me enormously think about how I use my time. I have leaders. I talked to one. I invited him to come and speak to my leadership team a few weeks ago, and I told my team, because I first met that leader more than 20 years ago, and I said the reason I'm here is because of this leader. Now he didn't know it. He didn't really, but I had an executive interview with him when I was an impressionable young employee. I'd been with IBM 2 years at the time, and still wondering what I wanted to do in life and what I was ever going to be capable of doing. But I had one meeting with him, and the things that he told me and the connections that he made set me up significantly to be more successful. But you also have the people that are even your peers, and they help connect you to somebody else that you just didn't have access to, or they ask you questions that nobody has asked, or they provide you feedback because they know you really well and it's penalty free and you can take it or leave it, but it's things that ultimately make a difference. Or it's the person, when I was applying for a scholarship to go do my MBA, and I told him what my ambitions were, and he said, but I don't think you're on track to do that. And when I've told other people, they said, how dare he say that? Actually, that's what I needed to hear, because I wasn't on track to do that. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what it takes to get back on track to do that. So that advice was enormously helpful. When I later on went back to, when I did go to business school, I kept thinking about that. And I soon realized he was absolutely right, because my ambitions weren't set appropriately. Again, you went back, you can't be what you can't see. You go to business school. I met so many other people. While I just wanted to get a really good job and become an executive, I was surrounded by people who wanted to own companies, who wanted to buy companies, who wanted to change the world in ways that I had not even contemplated. And so I see all of these as ways in which we can all have a significant impact, even without taking credit for it, even without thinking that we are. And it's these little points of light in our careers, in our lives, that I think ultimately have a really big impact. And that's why it's probably not even important for me to mention one, because there's so many everyday examples in which we can help provide legacy for others.
Well, you give me chills there. The comment about points of light and the examples that you gave of leadership that are not necessarily leaders that would that would precede you. They are individuals who are coming up through the ranks as well, and it includes family, friends, colleagues, etc. But it's those little moments, those points of light, those moments of truth that make the biggest impact. There are millions of them, right, every day, and they all
Indeed.
add up to the reality that we choose to live. So that is fantastic. I love that view that you provided. I guess is my closing question. This is what we do with Ideagen every time we do a fireside chat, and I think this is even more. I'm very curious, more interesting for the conversation that we're having here. What are the 3 things that you're doing to change the world, and why?
Well, I think the first thing is just try to be a good example to those around me, because I know that, again, there are people that might look up to me. I don't know why, but they might. So trying to make sure that I'm my best every day. So that's one little thing. And that's particularly for my kids. The second thing is the work that I do, with the other charities that I'm involved with, but more importantly, the mentoring that I do at work, and for those that aren't even at work at IBM, because I do think that every time you can identify, develop somebody, find somebody who is just raring to go, and they just need somebody to say the right word for them to do better. Somebody who is about to give up because they've pushed so hard and they're finally going to give up, and you say, no, 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 one more step, one more try, one more round. It's enough for you to always take the call when somebody needs advice, when somebody needs help, and being authentic to them the way that people have been to me. And then finally, my work with Women in Cloud, which I think it is, I get more out of it than I put in, because you're surrounded with these incredibly just brilliant women who have got this one focus, which is how do we increase access for women in technology.
Powerful, such powerful words. I think if I can play back what you shared, be your best self, engage, take the call, and just doing that every day and giving back and making sure that you're there for people. And then the last is just paying it forward, right? And that economic access toward diversity and inclusion, not just for women, but for all underrepresented, communities that exist. Really raising all those boats is truly key. And it is really not only what Ideagen is about, but all the work that IBM is doing in conjunction with our partners and our ecosystem, our clients and our people. I'm just so proud to be part of an organization and have the opportunity to work with and get to know you. So I want to thank you for your time today, Evaristus. I thank you again. I really appreciate it. And look forward to continuing to work with you in Women in Cloud and for future events at Ideagen. As mentioned, we have the Empowering Women and Girls Summit coming up in September. Most will be digital, but we also do the Call for Code. And we typically do that at NASDAQ. So hopefully we all have our vaccinations and we will be ready to take that on in just a few months. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our esteemed colleague and guest here. And Evaristus, is there anything else you want to add for the audience?
Thank you so much for the conversation, and looking forward to seeing you soon, Kim.
Thank you. You as well. Take care.
Thank you.